Creepy / unexplained traveling stories. Saw a thread on here earlier about someone asking about traveling to other countries or places in your homeland. Figured I'd start a thread about those of us whom have traveled and experienced things you found creepy. If you paid any attention to the thread I mentioned, I'm the guy who ended up traveling alone for 5 years all over the US, Canada, and Mexico. Let's start with one I remember extremely vividly. During the third year of my travels, at this point I'm in Wisconsin, heading towards the border with Canada to go see a few friends of mine. Should mention that throughout the 5 years, I traveled primarily by foot. Had been walking the majority of the day, and dusk was starting to appear. Decided to try and hitchhike to the next town, and hopefully find some cover. It looked like it was going to pour. A beat-up older model Chevy stops. The driver looks like a guy in his late 40s. Asks me where I'm headed. Tell him the next town over. He tells me to hop in the back and he'll give me a lift. Do as he says, and soon I'm rolling down the road, enjoying the chance to rest my legs in the nice cool breeze. About an hour passes and we arrive in this tiny, one-road town. Literally every building is on the single road heading through it. Hop out, thank the old guy, and he hesitates before speaking. Look, son, I don't know who you are, but if I were you, I'd keep going and not stop here. Guy even offers to give me a lift to the next town over where he's headed, but I decline because I am hungry and want to sleep in a real bed for once. He shrugs, then warns me to be careful, then drives off without a look back. I think nothing of it and head into the closest diner-looking place to ask about a hotel and grab a bite to eat. Walk in, a little bell chimes, and quite literally everyone in the place stops, turns, and stares at me like I'm a piece of trash or something. Think nothing of it. When you travel for as long as I had, you realize all small towns are like that. Unbuckle my pack, sit in an empty booth, and take a seat. Sit there and wait for someone to come and take my order as I feel all these eyes boring into me. But fuck you Hicks, I want a burger and some sweet, sweet soda. Finally, after about 10 minutes, a frumpy looking older woman, maybe in her 30s, walks over to my table and just looks at me. I look up at her and smile, but she's looking at me like she wants to take her pen and stab me with it. She says, "Well, what do you want?" Damn lady, don't gotta be rude. Look over the menu since she wants to be an ass. Take my time with it, then finally ask her what she recommends. She rolls her eyes and huffs, then says that their specialty stew is good. I want nothing to do with their specialty, so I go with a good old-fashioned hamburger. She stands there for a few moments, then finally writes it down and heads back to put it on the order pile. This entire time, the diner is silent, save for the sounds of the kitchen and some honky-tonk on a shitty radio. Look around, and people are still eyeballing me like I'm the Antichrist. Decide to try and be nice and wave to a few of them. Get the stink eye for my troubles. Burger comes up. She slaps it in front of me with my drink and walks off. I decide fuck this and check it before I eat, because these people are weird as fuck. Burger checks out. Nothing weird on it, and everything looks fresh. Meat is done. Start wolfing it down so I can get out of there ASAP. Turns out to be a pretty good burger. Get up, pay for my food, and ask the waitress if there's a motel in town. She grumbles something under her breath, then points down the street at a horribly dilapidated brick building. Say thanks, and power walk my ass out of the diner and down to the building. There are a few people out on the street, and they all give me the same treatment as the diner. Got it. You people really fucking hate strangers. Decide I'll sleep 6 hours and head out of town before sun comes up because I feel like I've worn out what little welcome I had. Get to the hotel. It's in worse shape up close than I could tell from the diner. No cars in the parking lot. Shitty pool that looks like it has not been used in forever, and the sun is missing letters. My brain is screaming that I should just keep walking and find a spot out in the woods to camp, but I really want a bed. Walk into the lobby, and the fattest man I have ever seen is sitting behind a desk, watching some old black and white TV show. Looks up at me. One eye is nothing but milky white, while the other was green. He labors out of the chair that he was in, huffs over to the desk, and asks what the hell I want. This town is really shitty on customer service apparently. I ask for a single bedroom for one night. He snorts and says that they only have twin rooms available because all the singles are reserved. You lying fat fuck, you just want more money. Of course, I don't say this, but I grit my teeth and say fuck it, I'll take one. Pony up the cash, get a beat up old key, and soon find myself in room 2102. The whole room smelled like old meat and mildew. Wonderful, I got the fragrant suite. Toss my gear on the bed, lock the door while putting a chair under the doorknob, check under the beds and in the closet, then decide to take a shower. Guess what? Shower doesn't work. Call the fat man. He says maintenance will take care of it tomorrow. Doesn't help me tonight, you fat fuck. Hang up, dig through my pack for my baby wipes, and do a field bath. Relax for a bit, channel surf pointlessly, then end up passing out. Wake up sometime during the night to the sound of the room's door handle jiggling ever so slightly. Reach into my pack and grab the revolver I keep for emergencies, then tiptoe over to the peephole. Look through it and see the fat man standing against the far wall with a group of about 5 men crowding around the door and talking quietly but very animated. One of them says something about just busting in and taking care of the guy since he is asleep. Sorry fellas, but the guy is awake and looking right at you. Fat guy jerks and pulls out a walkie, listens to it, then gets a frozen look on his face, gestures towards the door hurriedly and mumbles about the guy being awake and standing on the other side of the door. The 5 guys stop and slowly look towards the people. Then one of them pulls out a taser while the others draw knives. Fuck. Start thinking of what I could do when one of the guys closest to the door grabs the handle and starts really jerking on it, trying to pull it open. Starts cussing out the fat guy about the key not working and that he won't get as big a cut for this one because of it. At this point, I say fuck it, throw on my clothes, shoes, and pack, and head to the window to see if I can get out that way. Wanna guess what happened? If you guessed that the window was the kind that they put in psych wards to keep people from opening them, you would be right. Start silently praying to whatever deity comes to mind that they let me get out of here. About that time, something hits the door hard, then again and again. Happens a few more times before an axe head pops through the door, but the axe gets stuck. I mentally say, fuck this, aim the revolver at the window, and squeeze off 3 rounds to weaken it so I can jump through. Lucky for me, they actually break it completely out. The guys in the hallway start freaking out, and I can hear other axes hitting the outside of the door. I am not ending up in someone's meal. I jump out of the window and hit the ground awkwardly, fucking my left ankle up, but I bite down and take off running towards the woods closest to the motel. I get about halfway across the parking lot before I heard someone shout from the broken window, "He's heading towards the trees." This only spurs me on more. I hit the tree line and immediately start heading towards the town's exit, keeping a decent amount of trees between myself and the road. Eventually, I have to stop and catch my breath and let my ankle rest, and I take the time to reload the 3 spent rounds in the revolver, making sure to put the shell casings in a pocket so I don't leave them as a marker to be followed by. That's when I heard the sirens. The closer they got, the better I could see that they were leading a couple of trucks with people in the beds of them with spotlights looking through the woods. The police car was using its side-mounted light to do the same thing, so I start carefully making my way deeper into the woods so as to not be spotted as easily with the lights. The closer they get to my relative position, the slower I go, until they're about even with where I am. I freeze up behind a tree and hold my breath, waiting for them to pass by so I can continue. After what felt like ages, but was more than likely just 10 or so seconds, the procession keeps going, and my asshole unclenches, and further into the woods I limp. I do keep the road to my right so I can somewhat keep my bearings, and for about 30 minutes, I keep limping. Through the trees, I see lights heading back my way, so I stop and crouch down behind some bush and fallen trees to see if it's a convoy looking for me, or just a normal motorist. Nope, it's the murder convoy. Same thing as last time. Cop car up front with its spotlight stabbing out, and the trucks with their hillbilly asses doing the same thing with their lights. I wait about 10 minutes after they pass, then head out as fast as I could move. Continue like that for 2-ish hours before I see headlights coming at me, and instinctively I duck, because who knows if they are murder hillbillies. They're moving slow, like they're looking for something or someone, so my mind decides that they're part of the assholes back at the town. For some reason, I get really pissed off and decide I'm going to find out what the fuck is going on. Start making my way towards the road and get there. The vehicle, a truck, still a good 80 yards away from my current position. I fish around for a rock or something heavy and wait for it to pass me, thinking I'll throw it. They'll stop to check if they hit something, and then I'll pounce. In hindsight, it was a shitty plan, but I was pissed and in pain. Truck pulls up the road, gets parallel to my position, and I chuck a rock I'd found, maybe the size of an adult male's fist, and hit the truck square in the passenger side door. Truck screeches to a halt, and I hear a younger guy start cussing about stupid ass deer hitting him. Guy gets out, walks around to the passenger side, pulls out a lighter, and starts looking at the damage. Taking that as my cue, I quietly walk up behind him, cock the hammer on the revolver, and tell him if he moves, it will be the last thing he ever does. Guy literally starts shaking and pisses himself, then says that I can have the truck as long as I don't hurt him. I tell him that they're the ones that are trying to hurt me, and you can see his body tense. He asks me if I'm talking about the town I just left, and I say of course I am. He says if I let him get back in the truck, he'll drive me to the town he was coming from. I laugh and ask him if he thinks I'm stupid, but I get no answer. I tell him to stay there while I get in the truck. I hop in and look over at him, and the guy is as white as a ghost. He literally begs me not to leave him out there. I ask him why, and he says that the town he was going to pass through farther up the road does not like strangers, and that people passing through alone tend to disappear around the area. I don't know why I believed him, but I checked his glove box to make sure he did not have a gun in there, then told him to get in and keep his hands where I could see him. Dude literally almost jumps into the passenger seat, buckles in, and once I've got the truck turned around, he tells me to floor it, which I happily obliged. While we drive, I ask him questions about the town. Apparently, they'd had a couple of teen girls get assaulted there in the early 50s, and they'd really taken a hate towards anyone out of town, intended to try and run them off as fast as they could. Families not so much, but if someone was traveling alone, they got it the worst. Also told me that everyone in that part of the state knew to stay clear of the place when it was getting dark. I mentally kicked myself about the warning the old man gave me. Anyways, we keep driving, and the guy is giving me directions towards one of the bigger towns, because, in his words, you're probably not going to want to stay in the smaller towns around here. Guy didn't know how right he was. After about an hour into driving, we see the lights of a fairly decent-sized town, which made me happier than I could express properly. I pull up into a truck stop and hop out and look at the guy and apologize for what I did. Like a champ, he waves it away and says he'd have done the same thing in my shoes, then gives me about $80 in cash to catch a bus as far away from here as you can. Mate, you don't have to tell me twice. He drives off in the direction where we came from, and I head inside to see about getting a bus ticket somewhere far, far away from Murder Hillbilly Central. Sadly, I don't have any info about the town. I don't remember the name or the area of Wisconsin it was in, except that it was in the Upper Peninsula. Be me as a kid, in car with mom and her friend. Mom's friend got a job at some sort of medical retreat. We're driving there now, way out in the woods, probably PNW. Make it there, and get out into the small, empty parking lot. Large building made of stained wood, with large, rectangular windows. Architecture is a weird mix of abstract modernism, very asymmetrical and uncomfortable to look at. Enter building, and am met with very long hallway. As we're walking down the hallway, I can see the parking lot just outside the window to my left. Reach end of hallway, and turn right into antechamber, which connects to yet another absurdly long hallway, running parallel to the first one. Junction seems to serve no purpose. Sparsely decorated, save for the odd fern and the grey carpeting, which muted our footsteps. Reach end of second hallway, and turn left into second antechamber. Leads into small, L-shaped hallway with a single small window, and cream-colored walls that contrasted with the stained wood up until that point. Turn right, and I'm faced with open door with a pitch-black room beyond it. What little light trickles in from the hallway illuminates what appears to be endless rows of gurneys, each with a single occupant in a hospital gown. They are attended by nurses in dated-looking attire, think 50s. The nurses attend to needs the patients don't appear to have. None of the gurneys have anything except for the patient, yet the nurses check non-existent IVs and monitors. Some of the people in the gurneys look familiar, even some family members. Unnerved, I turned to leave. There was a bench behind me that I did not notice, with a man sleeping on it. It was perfectly quiet, so I did not notice him on the way in. Sleeping man wakes up and sits up groggily, loudly asking after the condition of a patient. I begin to answer when I hear a loud shuffling coming from the room behind me. All of the patients are sat upright in their beds, eyes wide open. I panic and run. Sleeping man is still groggy and trying to wake up. The nurses are panicking and trying to run to the exit. Running down hallway, hear men screaming, some nurses screaming. Hear thousands of footfalls of bare feet. In first hallway again and look back. See nurse round corner. Horde of patients round corner. Following her, all with expressionless faces. Focus on escaping. Bust through front doors and break for the trees. Don't have the car keys. Keep sprinting until I'm in tree cover. Climb into sturdy fir or pine tree with dense branches. Look at entrance through the boughs. See remaining nurse burst through doors. Sprints into large, grassy clearing in front of main entrance, followed by patients. The patients' gowns have been replaced by dark purple robes, no hoods. Nurse gets run down. She disappears in the crowd and her screams are cut off. She rises in a purple robe of her own. The horde of patients immediately spread out into the surrounding woods to look for me. Some pass right underneath me, and I hold my breath. They don't speak. Can't really hear or see them breathing. Their footsteps don't even make that much noise on the forest floor. They eventually start to return to the facility. Wake up. Rural guy from Gasconade County, Missouri. I have a story that's not spooky, but involves some dumb shit that my grandpa, aka Pawpaw, used to do. 9 years old. Parents were shitty alcoholics, so they used to drop me off with my grandparents pretty much every week. They got a little too drunk one weekend and tried to drive. That was the end of them. My grandparents were way too old to really watch over me at that point, so Grandpa had this trick to keep me in line. Next to this chair, he used to keep this cardboard cylinder, one of those from a used up paper towel roll. Before I ever went outside to play, he'd say, "Don't go anywhere you're not supposed to, because my truth-telling stick will find you out." I would look at that stupid roll of cardboard with wonder in my eyes, thinking it was magic or something. "Yes, Papa," I'd say, and then I'd go play, being extra careful not to do anything bad. Every time I returned home, Grandpa would pull out his truth-telling stick again. He'd look at me through it, like a pirate with a telescope. "Where you been today, sonny?" "The woods, Papa." "Good boy, now go get your bath." This became a ritual. Even after I stopped believing in it, Grandpa just used the truth-telling stick to mess with me. Here's a stupid example, just to give you an idea. One time we're eating supper, and Grandma asked how I liked the stew she made. I told her I liked it fine, and Grandpa pulled out the truth-telling stick from out of nowhere and said, "He thinks it's salty." Just dumb shit like that. Also, when I was 14, I developed this huge crush on a girl from school. One time she came to our house for a get-together or something. I was too much of a pussy to make a move, but Grandpa knew I liked her, so he offered to read our fortunes with that damn cardboard roll. Cringe department, please hold. After sizing us up for a moment, Grandpa said, "You two are destined to get married." Super embarrassing. But it broke the ice, and she and I ended up laughing and talking about it. Afterward, while everyone was inside, we ended up making out behind the house. Base department? Anyway, Papa did all sorts of shit like that. Like, he used to say that his truth-telling stick could predict the weather. I'd ask him to make a prediction, and he would be right every fucking time. Obviously he had some trick, but it was still impressive. Yeah, it's called the news, dumbass. Anyway, he died a few years back. It was a very dark time for me. A few months before he died, he and I had some really serious talks. Stuff I never talked about with anyone, like my parents and how angry I was with them. Those talks were the first time I really confronted the fact that one day Grandpa would die too, and I would be left alone all over again. I don't know if that sounds cheesy, but I got kinda scared. Then he fell ill. On his deathbed, he made me promise to keep my inheritance safe. I was confused till I realized he meant the truth-telling stick, and I laughed. I thought it was another one of his jokes, but he got really serious and told me to promise him that I would use it sometime. So I promised. Anyway, after he died, I was really grief-stricken, and I wound up picking up that stupid roll of cardboard and looking through it, and I saw that there was a paper rolled up inside. Before I even opened it, I realized why the old man had promised me that I would not throw it away. It was a simple letter. This is the truth. I love you, son. You crazy old dodger. I miss you, Papa. My family hails from the deep south, and we have tons of spooky tales. This one is standard fare, very typical of the kinds of stories I grew up hearing. It was told to me by my mother. Mom's cousin, Thea, was a preacher who did not believe in God. He lost his faith when his daughter died, but he felt like he'd be letting everybody down if he gave up preaching, so he kept at it. Week after week, he's growing more and more bitter. He sits down at his desk one night and pulls out his pistol, holds it to his head. He's about to pull the trigger when there's a knock at the door. It's an older woman, a parishioner. He knows her very well. Her husband died a few years back, but she never remarried. Now she cleans houses 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, trying to make ends meet for herself and her 2 children. Tears are streaming down her face, and Theo invites her in. Her eyes dart around the room. She tells Thea that she's been waking up every night to a strange man standing by her bedside. He talks to her. At first, she'd shut her eyes and force herself back to sleep through the terror. But every night, he's there again, and he always says the same thing. He says there's money buried out near the house, and it's not for nobody else but you. Eventually, she became accustomed to his visits, and she ventured to ask him where the money is buried, but he won't tell her unless she promises to bring the preacher man Thea. Night after night, he says the same thing, and tonight she finally decided she could not take it anymore. Won't you come with me, so he will leave me alone? Thea, of course, has fully lost faith not just in God, but in spirits and the afterlife. But the woman is clearly distraught, so he accompanies her home. Her little house sits out in the hills all alone. It's empty when they get there, and the woman says, "He'll be back if I go to sleep." So Theo sits in the kitchen, somewhat annoyed, while the woman goes to bed. He sits for a long while, thinking about his daughter, when he hears a man's voice. It's clear as day, but there is nobody around. The hair on the back of Theo's neck stands up as the voice speaks to him. It tells him where the money is buried, and it tells him that it belongs to the woman and nobody else. Then it tells him that it needs a favor. Theo must dedicate a sermon to such and such person. He must light 2 candles before the sermon, and he must not finish until the candles go out. Then the room is silent. After a long bewildered moment, Theo goes to wake up the woman from her sleep. He explains what he was told, and the 2 go outside to dig. They dig for a long time, until they uncover what looks like a large clay vessel. It's chock full of, not just money, but solid gold coins. The woman cannot believe her eyes. The vessel is enormous. She'll never have to work again. That's basically it. The woman is a friend of the family's, and while I know of her, she and I have never spoken. She's got a beautiful house there, which Mom says she rebuilt over the old place. Theo, on the other hand, delivered the sermon as promised, and the man never appeared again. In the end, he slowly regained his faith. My mom was at his bedside when he died, and said he smiled. Tears flooded his eyes, and he called out his daughter's name. Then he died. Be me, 17. Staying over by a friend's house, 18. Go to a park at 1 a.m. to smoke a cigarette. Park has a few lights, but still everything is half dark. Next to the park is a river. Riverside is impossible to climb up. Too steep and too muddy all the time. 15 people drowned in the river. Halfway smoking the cigarette, I see a form coming up the riverbank. In half dark, I can only see it looks like the Reaper. Where's the clothes of the Reaper? Freak out. Oh shit. Figure is all up, 25 feet away from me. Can recognize it's floating 2 inches from the ground, no fate. Say hello, leave us alone. Comes nearer. All of a sudden, get headaches, panic attack, and loss of sight. Everything I see stretches and is blurry. Have no feeling for time. Friend grabs me and pulls me away. Run for our lives. Shit, man. I have blocked out some scary stories from living in Northern AZ. Lots of weird things happen here. I don't have any personal stories that I remember vividly, but my friend who lives out on the Navajo res has a story about her barn. Late at night, taking dog out to piss. Horrified screams and shrieks from darkness. Dog starts freaking the fuck out. Realize it's coming from barn. All the sheep and mother cows are howling in fear and pain. Run towards it and see eviscerated, bloody sheep in middle of the floor. Something naked, pale and skinny, looking with large reflective white eyes, jumps up to rafters some 20 to 30 feet above. Disappears. Friend's brother had to spend the next week out on the roof in the freezing winter nights with a shotgun. Somehow, animals would still get eviscerated until they hired a shaman who would go out there to sanctify the place. For those who don't know, Navajo used to practice skinwalker rituals, and some still do. I haven't spoken this story to other people because just saying the name harbors bad shit, and I live in a secluded area law. More related skinwalker stories from my friends incoming. I want this thread to stay alive. Coming at you with another story. Once again, a friend from my church group, not living on res, but he's an outdoorsman, loves late night hikes in particular. Driving through woods late at night, coming home from camping trip. It's dark, super dark. Northern AZ used to be the darkest place in America in ratio to how many people live there, / light pollution. Very dense pine trees. See eyes on side of road. No big deal. Deer have those reflective eyes. Keep driving. Ice still behind him. Look at speedometer. 70 miles per hour. Keep looking at eyes in rearview mirror. Eyes keep pace with him for a few minutes. Might be car with fog lights. Nope. Goes off side of the road and follows for trees. Pick up speed for trees. Now keeping pace beside car, looking in. Nope. Pull pistol out of glove box and shoot at it. Doesn't leave. Fuck it. 120 miles per hour. Eyes go up into the trees and follow for treetops. What the fuck? Starting to get into op area, slow down. Drive into ditch while not paying attention. Fuck. Crash wasn't that bad, thankfully. See eyes behind, really close. Hold pistol close. Close eyes and start praying. It went away, but his friend had to pull him out.